So we are trying to look at Python fundamentals for data analytics. So this is what we're going to start with. And the learning objectives for this is we want to explain, what Python is and why it is a dominant language for data analytics. So, why Python, right? Then we are going to use, what we call variables to store different types of data. The fact that we're talking about data analytics, data analytics, so it means that we have different types of data sets, right? Different types of data sets. So when you're talking about whatever we've written here, these are words. There is a way that we treat words. There is a way that we treat numbers. There is a way that we treat yes and no answers. So we have different types of data, and we're going to deal with that. We also going to work, with these data types. As I've talked about, we are going to store and retrieve collections of data using, what we call lists and dictionaries. So one thing about Python is it's a very straightforward scripting or programming language. When you talk about lists, these are just like the lists that you know. When you talk about dictionary, what is a dictionary? A dictionary is, when you go and look for a word, for example, data, you will go to the dictionary, look for data, then you'll have an explanation for what data is all about. So it's a very straightforward language. Then one of the most important things about Python or programming in general is it's what is called conditional logic. And it is very easy. It's called the if and else, right? When you talk about if the cost of internet charges is greater than 5,000, then the Mbps should be else, so you're giving conditions like if this happens, then this is what you're supposed to do. So it's just about logic. Then we're going to do what is called loops over data. This is repetitive. You have data, you need to loop over, certain data. The last one that we're going to look at is what is called functions. Most of these things that we are doing are very repetitive, and functions come in to help try simplify the code so that you do not repeat yourself all the time. To start with the first one here, and the question is why Python, right? So I think I had already talked about this. Python is very simple to read. It's like, when you talk about English, it's very simple. It doesn't have like complicated syntax, and it is hugely popular. It is used by, so many big tech companies out there. Talk about Google, Netflix, NASA, banks, most of these big tech companies, small companies alike use Python, and it has what is called amazing libraries. So libraries, collection of functions. We will talk about functions. The collection of functions that help you do some certain tasks. For example, pandas. Pandas is a very important library that we are going to be using because it is used in data analysis and manipulation. So we talk about pandas. So we are going to use pandas a lot. NumPy is library that is used in numerical computation. Most of the time we have matplotlib that is used in visualization. So we have these different types of libraries that are used in different functions. Pandas is more like Excel, NumPy is for numerical computation, matplotlib is for visualization, and you have quite a number of other libraries that we are going to talk about. So we will quickly go to data types. So when you're talking about data types, okay, first of all, we need to understand what a variable is. So we have what is called a variable. So what is a variable? Just as you see here, right? These are like buckets. Whatever you're seeing here, like buckets. So we say that called storage box in the computer's memory. So this is where you store your data, you store your information. And the way we create a variable, we just say the name of the variable itself. For example, if you want to say age, whatever you're seeing here, you just say age is equals to 25. So this is a variable in itself. So for you to create a variable, you need to have this equal sign here to be able to assign a variable, a number to a variable. Name, we say that it is Corey, and for as you can see here, talk about age. Age is 25, so that is a number, and it's a number. It is an integer. Integer does not have like decimal points. Then we have what is called a float. So for float, it has decimal points. So you talk about price, it can be 26.55. Here it's 19.99. So talk about name. Name is a string and it's a text. You have to close it with those quotation marks. Then we have what is called Boolean. Boolean is just yes or no, true or false. So these are some of the data types that we will be working with, and this is how you assign your variables. Let's look at these. Let's start looking at the code and how it looks like. So we say that when you look at integers, these are whole numbers without decimal points. So when you look at the number of employees, so you see what has been done here, right? So this is called, instead of just writing employees, you write the variable and let it be so descriptive of what you're trying to talk about. For example, you'd have just written employees 250, but when you write num, then put an underscore employees, it becomes more descriptive, and even the person who is reading your code will understand what you're talking about. So you just write here num employees, you just put an equal sign, put it 250, then you want to print it, right? So you can just actually print it and just write print, you put these brackets and you write you can actually print just a minute. Let me create another one here to just show you. So you can actually print the integer, the number of employees directly, even without trying to understand what type of variable that is. So when you run that, that is what you're going to see. So this is what you see here, right? So integer, it's a whole number. So when you print and you put it into brackets and you put the variable name, then you're going to get 250 because this is the assigned value to this variable and it is a whole number, which is an integer. So if you want to test to see what kind of integer that is, you just write type in front of it. There you go. There you go. Right. There you go. So you see what has been printed here is that there's an integer. So this variable here, now employees, is an integer. Now let's take an example of these again. It's the same. It's a float. Let me put it here. And I write it like that without the type here. So you see, you've assigned this value, right? The average salary. And you see the way you're naming your variables. It is average underscore salary. Very descriptive. And this is how you're supposed to be naming your variables for ease of understanding, so that you do not, because at the end of the day, when you're doing some analysis of so many things, sometimes you might get mixed up if you just use salary and maybe there is another variable that you need to create for salary. Maybe this is average salary, maybe you need median salary, you need mode salary or something else, so or standard deviation of the salary, variance and all that. So we have quite a number of variables that we can be able to generate from a single. So for example, this one is 45750.50. so when you look at this is not a whole number, it has a decimal. So when first you just print that, it will spit out the value of this variable, and Python knows exactly what this is. So when you do that and run it, that is what you're going to see. And just one thing that you need to do when you're creating these variable names, make sure that you do not leave a space and say, for example, average salary. You see, even, it will give you a syntax. It's called a syntax error. It's going to give you a syntax error because it needs to be one variable name, not two words. It has to be one, and that is why you need to put the underscore. This underscore is called a snake case. It's used for variable names, and don't use for Python. We have other programming languages, and you can use other methods for doing that. We have what is called camel case. Camel case would look like this: average salary. But for Python, most of the time you use what is called the snake case. So the snake case is just take the words as they are in lowercase, then add an underscore onto it. So another thing is that a variable must start with a letter. Don't start with a number. Don't start with anything else. Like an exclamation mark, a plus sign. Just start with an underscore or a letter. So those are the ones that are only allowed when it comes to Python. Most of the time when you talk about Boolean, as I said earlier, when it comes to Python, we would want it to be as understandable as possible. So for example, is profitable in plain English would be, is it profitable? But because we're talking about a programming language here, we're talking about is underscore profitable, then you write true. Is it listed? Then say false. So when you see these two, and I remove the type here because I just want to see print, yeah, it will tell you true. So is listed to tell you false. Now when I write what is the type of that variable, so this is what you're going to see. So this bool that it's trying to tell you that there's a boolean variable. So this is all about the variables. So you have quite a number of variables, and those are the main variables that we're going to use. So another thing is when you starting, you want to comment for the readability. For example, here we were talking about Boolean, so maybe you need to add comments. So when you want to add comment, for you to just, for readability, even when you're sharing a code to using Colab or even through GitHub, you want to make sure that your code is very readable, even for yourself, because sometimes you push code to GitHub or you create a Colab notebook, then you come back at it maybe 2 or 3 weeks later. If you do not document your code very well, it will be very difficult for you to understand. You maybe have forgotten some of the things that you did. So documenting your code is very important. So you need to comment. For example, you start with a hash sign, then you say you are talking about Boolean here, or you're talking about something else. For example, integer here, float, and all that. So here, for example, in these, for example, if maybe I don't want these to be printed, I just want to assign values to my variables, and I don't want it to be printed to the console. So we say printed to the console. This is like the console. If I don't want this to be printed, I'll just do this, and I'll just go shift and put a hash sign in front of what I want to change into a comment. When you change it to a comment, then it will not be printed to the console. For example, now for us, we want to do that for all the print, because we want to go to another. So print, and then you have that print. So when you run this cell in Colab notebook, this is what so this print type and all that will not be there. So the only thing that would have been done here is that this 250 will be assigned to employees. This 45 750 will be assigned to average salary. Then we have string. I say that you can use single or double quotes. So department data science, company Savannah analytics. So how we are using variables in expressions. So I have one example here. It's an arithmetic. So let me comment. It's an arithmetic. So remember that we had number of employees. When I hover over this, you see that it's an integer and it's 250. Average salary is a float because it has a decimal. So we are trying to assign this annual revenue. So this is a variable. We are trying to assign the multiplication of these two variables that has their own values that have been assigned earlier, their own values. So this is the multiplication sign. So when we do that, at the end of the day, we're going to have the annual revenue. So the annual revenue. Of course, this is not the way that annual revenue is calculated, but anyway, for the purposes of these, we're going to use that. So we're going to do a print. For example, let me just take an example here. If you were to print, just print annual revenue, right? Just to print annual revenue, this is what you're going to get. This is what you're going to get when you just print annual revenue. I don't know if this is intuitive to you. I don't think this is very intuitive, and that is why we have these, for example, we have this way that I can be able to print. Let me remove that. Yeah, you can say that you can add a string in front of the annual revenue and say the annual revenue is, then you put a comma there, then you put maybe a space. Let me comment this out first. When you do that, you're able to see. Oh yeah, you see. This is what it will tell you. This is what it will tell you. That maybe you've forgotten something, right? Invalid syntax. Perhaps you forgot a comma. Yeah, I actually forgot a comma, and there it is. So when you run this again, this is what you're going to get, and you're going to see that that is your average revenue. So another way of doing that actually is just using what is called the literal F literal. So this one, what you do is you just put an F after you after print, then the first bracket here, you put an F, then you put everything inside the quotation marks, but the variable that you want it to be printed together with the string that you have here, you put it in curly braces or curly brackets. That is what you do, so that it will be able to be displayed, because you're putting everything in string. Normally, these quote marks or quotation marks are used to print out strings or words or sentences, but the variable name here, which is annual revenue, you can see that that is a float, right? You can be able to see it here. So you cannot just put it inside, the string just like that. You need to introduce these curly braces or brackets in order for it to be printed to the console. So that is how you do a bit of manipulation for these strings and how you print them. And that is it about variables and data types. At least now you understand how to create a variable, how to assign values to variables in Python. The different data types. You're talking about strings, you're talking about integers, you're talking about floats, you're talking about Boolean. So that is very key. Thank you.